So, since 2017 is pretty much in the bag, we gotta move on to prediction time, right? What sorts of things will we see from the gaming industry in 2018? Despite not giving them much attention this year, one of my biggest questions is it possible? Is there any way the Xbox One could make a comeback in the new year? Microsoft just screwed the Xbox One so hard, so hard. It can't be overstated. At that original announcement, oh, you can watch TV on it. Get hype. Remember that? It comes bundled with the Kinect, the future of gaming, which will also set it at a higher price point than the more powerful PS4. So basically, their pitch was, as long as you don't care about playing video games on your video game console, then the Xbox One is the system for you. Ugh, what a joke. And yeah, that killed them for a couple years. Then we got Phil Spencer placed at the helm, and he has turned this thing around pretty well, in my opinion, I will say. You know, adding all the backwards compatible games, bringing focus back to the actual gaming with the Xbox One X, which is a great system, obviously. But the problems are really twofold in my opinion. It has been too little too late. Yes, they've course corrected, but it took so long, giving the PS4 a massive lead, who also released a more powerful console not long ago. The Switch came out this year too, so the Xbox One X didn't really even get much attention. You know, as far as, being the release kind of a new system, it pretty much just came and went. They needed this to be the focus at the beginning. I truly believe if simply they nixed all that TV stuff and removed the Kinect in favor of building a better box at launch, they'd be in a much better position, perhaps in the lead. But they gave the competition all this time. And secondly, the games. If you follow my channel, you might get sick of me saying this all the time, but it never gets any less important. When it comes to these console wars, what are the games is the big question. And sure, the X can play a lot of the games better than the PS4 Pro, for instance, which is a nice selling point, but more importantly, as always, what are the games we can play here that we can't play anywhere else? The exclusives. Now, hopefully they've gotten a nice boost from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I remember seeing that the game sold like 1 million copies in 3 days on the Xbox One, so the interest is there, and it is at least a timed exclusive, but I'll need to see some console numbers at the end of the month to see if it helped actually move some hardware. And they do have some stuff announced for 2018, but are there really any games that are going to move the needle, even the same way PUBG did, which I don't even know how much it really did? We have Crackdown 3, which was supposed to be a launch game for the X, but got delayed into 2018, which is probably a good idea because I thought the game, when they've showed it, has looked awful. Sea of Thieves, Rare's new IP, looks interesting, but I'm going to be honest, I still don't get it. Like, they promote this big pirate experience, exploring islands for treasure, battling enemy boats, etc. But I need to be taken through, like, what I'm doing, or more so, why am I doing these things? Like, what am I achieving for myself, my character, or whatever, for doing these activities? And from what I've heard from people in the beta, they don't really get it either. It kind of pisses me off, too, because I feel like with the time they've put into this big open world multiplayer game, which certainly we don't have enough of those, right? Especially on the PS4 and Xbox One. Of course not. But with all this time that's gone into this, they could have made like a new Banjo-Kazooie and a new Conker's Bad Fur Day. So I hope this thing does well for them, but it's not what I would have done. I mean, if I was tasked with making some big news for Xbox here's what I'd do. And I guess this could still happen. They could have another studio develop it. I'd announce a new Banjo-Kazooie is coming out for the Xbox One. I know there's a lot of people who just think like, oh, that's because you're a Nintendo fanboy, that's a dead franchise, nobody cares about it. Well, if you saw the release of Halo 5 and Gears 4, nobody seems to really care about those franchises either. So I'd announce a new Banjo-Kazooie, and we know they're big on reaching out and getting cross-play and stuff with the other consoles. They kind of want everyone to come together. Phil Spencer, I swear he talks about Nintendo almost more than Microsoft, seriously. So I'd say to generate extra hype as we get closer to the release of this new Banjo-Kazooie title, sign off on having Banjo and Kazooie appear as guest characters in the next Smash game. Whether it's a brand new title or some sort of deluxe version of the Wii U one, I know that Nintendo fanboys would love to just have Banjo-Kazooie back on Nintendo, but it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But letting them appear as guest characters in Smash would be a huge news story. I mean, just imagine one of those character announcement trailers with Banjo and Kazooie running around. People would lose their minds. And it could go a long way on pumping people up for this new game on the Xbox, while also giving a little, tip of the fedora to the Nintendo fan community. And that building that community with, say, Nintendo is a way I think Microsoft could kind of start to position themselves, close that gap a little bit on Sony, because one of kind of the, I don't want to say faults, but Sony's decided that they just kind of want to isolate themselves from everybody else. They don't want to participate in the cross-play, having all the consoles play together in games like Rocket League, right? So since this has all kind of come to fruition, I've stated kind of starting to team up a little bit with Nintendo where it makes sense, I think could really help boost those Xbox numbers. So if I was at Microsoft, that's like one of the little fun things I would consider. Beyond Sea of Thieves and Crackdown, all I can really think of right now is two other games that I'm actually looking forward to in 2018. Again, that have been announced. State of Decay 2, which, yes, even I poke fun at how played out the zombie trope is, but I love the original State of Decay, and despite its clunkiness, I believe it is the best example of really putting you in that zombie apocalypse survival experience to date. Scavenging through the houses and stuff for supplies, building a base, defending it, encountering other survivors, etc. So I'm actually pretty pumped for the sequel. And then there's this Last Night game that made pretty big waves at this past E3. I don't know much about it. Seems like it may be more story-driven, but come on, this art style combined with this Blade Runner-esque world, it already has me sold. So I honestly, it's one of the few instances, I'm always touting I'm a big gameplay guy. The art in the world has sold me on this game. If the gameplay maybe isn't really there that much, it doesn't really matter, I'm sold. But looking at the Xbox releases as a package, in terms of what we know is currently coming in 2018, I don't think it's nearly enough. We could really use another major IP, new or established, at least one. And no, I don't really think Crackdown 3 has much franchise power at all. I don't think anyone's running out to buy an Xbox One X to play the new Crackdown. Sorry. Especially when you got games like GTA 5. They need more things like PUBG that at least have a lot of buzz around them. I've said I don't like PUBG. I don't think it's very good. But I can't deny the media attention and the big numbers it does, like on Twitch and that. So people are interested, they're excited about this game. So they really need to get some more of that type stuff. With this whole deal with how they want to, combine the PC and Xbox communities, try to reach out and get more of those PC titles to get console exclusivity over them. Again, stuff like that. If you can get those PC games, playable on the Xbox, especially, obviously if you can get people to play on their Xbox with their friends on PC, or have people with PCs be able to play the same account on the Xbox and the PC, that's the stuff I think people will actually be interested in, and that's the stuff I'd be going for, because that way you're working with games that oftentimes already, they already exist on the PC, and you're just trying to get that console exclusivity to get them to bring them over to the Xbox. Like I said before, I honestly don't know if a new entry in even, say, the Gears of War or the Halo series would do much for them right now, as Halo 5 and Gears 4 came out pretty recently, and they weren't very well received. And now, like I said, it does help that for these major third-party multi-platform releases, games like Monster Hunter, Anthem, Code Vein, etc., Xbox is probably going to be able to boast that these games play better on the Xbox One X than the PS4 Pro, which is nice. But if I'm looking at these systems as a consumer, I'm going to pick one, a PS4 Pro, let's say, or an Xbox One X, I'm also taking into account that the PS4 is getting games like God of War, Spider-Man, Detroit Become Human, Last of Us 2, etc. The PS4 is clearly ahead of the Xbox in terms of major exclusives. And not to mention, you've got the Switch in there continuing to sell like hotcakes, even though It's not as direct of a competitor. It still really is a competitor. So I think all things considered, Microsoft would have to have several major bombshell announcements in terms of games, but also something beyond that. Maybe have a major influx of backwards compatibility games added. Maybe do something like a price cut to the Xbox One X, or putting together some nice bundles, you know, throwing a couple of games in there with it. But honestly, whatever they do, I don't think it's likely that they're going to dig themselves out of this hole that they've put themselves in. I'll say at least they've acknowledged a lot of what went wrong with the launch of the Xbox One, but they'd really need something exciting to make any real attempt to close that gap this generation. I just think people have already identified the Xbox One as kind of the meh console this generation, really. And it would have to do something huge to change that, and I don't see it. I don't see it in 2018. Hopefully I'm wrong. And with that, this video is a wrap. Let me know if you think the Xbox One could see a comeback in 2018. How do you think they could do it? As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.